Okay, so one of the things that sometimes is difficult to do is to remove an object from a textured background. And if I had just selected the outside of this chair, it would have made a mess. And so what I've done is I went ahead and spent a little bit of time trying to show you what it helps. The more precise your selection set. And it's taken me a while because as you saw from the first time we worked with this chair, it has a lot of very similar tones. And so, literally, what I'm doing is slowly going in here. Whoops, there we go, that works. Slowly going in here and taking as much out of that general overall selection set of the chair as I have time for. Because the more I can remove, the better job it's going to do in removing the chair from the background. Now, as much as possible, you want to make sure you have, if you're going to err, to leave anything in, let it be the background and not the chair. So you see how that overlapped the chair? I'm going to go back in and add it back in. There we go. Because I don't want any of the chair left out because it will leave it in. So I'm removing just very, very slowly, just one click at a time, as much as I can from the selection set that's not chair, that will help it make a smarter decision about what I'm removing. Okay, so let's say this is good. Let's see if this is good, because if not, I can always redo it. Okay, so I've selected quite a bit of the chair, and I'm going to hit delete and content aware, and I'm going to say okay. It's pretty good. It's not perfect because, as you can see, this is wrong. This is very wrong right here. And it's because it's such a big area. The bigger the area, the harder it is to remove things. All right, so if I hit Command D to get rid of that, you'll see that that was pretty good. That did a pretty good job. There's still things that need to be cleaned up. And that's going to be where the patience to come in here and clean this up, and time to do that, is essential if this is the kind of work you want to do. I personally don't have the patience for it, but I really admire people who do. The best thing you want to do in a case like this, if you know you're going to remove an object from a photo, is to take the photo and physically remove the object so that you have exactly what's back there. And this works really well with, like, especially those levitation photos. You'll see where they'll stage the model in the background with all these props, and then they'll have the model and all the props leave, and they'll take the exact same photo so they have exactly what's behind there. So what I would now need to do is really come in and clean this up with all my other tools. See, it's not even. Sometimes a spot healing brush tool works. Sometimes you're going to have to go back and use the. Let's see if the healing brush tool works. Whoops. Sorry. I wanted my destination. I'm a bigger fan of the clone stamp tool myself, personally. I think it works better. Let's see. I think I want that over here. Yeah, that looks good. And it's just a tedious, slow process. And I won't do the whole thing on here because we're just going to run out of time. But as much as possible, when you're working with something like this. Actually, I could do plus minus, but you want to make sure your selection set is as precise as possible. Also, sometimes with really big objects, when you're removing them, you may want to do them a little bit at a time. Say I want to get rid of this post. I'm just going to take it out in smaller bites like this. Whoops. Actually, where I have as much background as possible for it to sample from. And when I hit the delete key there, well, it didn't get rid of it all because it's sampling this and this. Let's try it this way. Oh, it's not wanting to do it. All right, let's try selecting it this way. Completely get it out of the image. Okay, in there, that did a great job. That did a really great job. So I would still need to come back and clean up some of this. Like that. Let's sample some of this. Yeah, you see that almost looks like there was never a pole there. The bigger the object, the harder it is to remove it. Sometimes it does work to take it out in small pieces. Let's try this again. Now that we've removed it, let's see what happens if I cleaned it up a little bit. Let's see if I just take it out now like this. No, it completely, let's just do it in smaller chunks. Yeah, that's better. This would need to clean this up with my clone tool. There we go. Still some red in there. It's looking better. That big vein in there. I might actually just get rid of that so that it looks like it stops right here. And then that's going to require me to zoom in closer. And this one's tough because it goes directly behind that chair. It's not too bad. It does look like the chair is beginning to go away. Let's take just some smaller ones. Just deleted that. Okay, so actually, you know, you can see up here where the stuff that I actually cleaned up from the top of the chair is starting to look pretty good. And it's going to be really tough once you get to an area like this because there's nothing in the scene that I can sample from. So you might kind of have to make it up. Let's see how that does. Not too bad. Yeah, there's some stuff like this that's just really... I'm not as big of a fan of that spot healing brush tool as some people. I prefer the clone stamp. I took some grass off the faces of some buffalo that I had taken a photo of. They just gotten done rolling upside down in the grass, and they had grass all over the face. And I was able to go in very, very, very closely, and I spent hours just painstakingly getting it out with the clone stamp tool. So I'm a huge fan of that personally, but you should use whatever tools work best for you, and go slow and methodical and take your time. Oops, I don't want that. There we go. All right, and so it's just slowly erasing that outline. Now, obviously, if you're going to do anything destructive like this, you want to make sure you have saved your original. Let's move that over. Yeah, and so that texture's starting to look pretty good behind there, and chair's starting to slowly go away. And then once I eventually clean it up, you can start to see it. You know, this doesn't look too bad. This area, I cleaned this area up. This area doesn't look like there's any problem with it. When you're done with something like this, there is a unsharp mask that you can apply. That's quite a bit. I would use maybe a very small radius and a very small amount, and it will help clean it up even further. Oh, something right over there. And say okay. Yeah, and that really, you can see in the areas that I cleaned it up, it helped to really sharpen, and you know, so now it doesn't look like there was ever a chair there. No one would notice that from far enough out. So when you're doing this, get as close as you can and go as slow as you possibly can, and just very slowly use as small as brush as you can. Just very slowly start working with. You can only go so far before you have to resample, otherwise it pulls back in the thing you're trying to get out. Now I'll show you one other thing that probably would have helped with this. When I was when I had my selection, you can select grow, and what that would do is it would have grown my selection outside, an additional pixel outside for every time I hit grow, outside my selection. So when I deleted it, I probably wouldn't have this little red outline anymore. It would have resolved that issue. Okay, so I can keep going, but you know, y'all don't want to sit here and watch me do that for hours. Whoops. And you can begin to see in the areas that I came in and I cleaned it up, like I did there and I did here, you can't see the object anymore. Okay, so take your time. It's going to take you a while to get through each one of those images that you're cleaning up. But take your time, go very slowly, get very close, use a small brush, and play around with these, see which ones work for you best. But understand, content aware is good, but it works best if you're only removing small things. As much as possible, if you really need something in there, photograph it that way in the first place. Okay, have fun.